It's been a while since my last video on living with the Renault ZOE EV, electric vehicle. That's probably a fairly good thing in that nothing much has happened really. It's just been life as usual with the car. Life around the car has been very busy, so that's another reason for not having done one of the videos for a while. So thanks for the few folks that had sent a wee note saying looking forward to the next video. That's great. However, today is kind of a special day for my Renault ZOE and for my journey with the ZOE and for living with the car. I've been now 16 months or so with the Renault ZOE, and so you get to one of those steps along the way that I thought would be quite good to mark. It's a bit arbitrary, but there is something special when you go over the big, big changes in miles. There's some kind of milestone to what you're doing when you're driving, and for me, I am just coming up to one of these milestones. Which, if you look down here, you can see the total miles done in the car since since the car's new, since I bought it last year, so back in January of 2014, and throughout that time, it's been a very interesting adventure, learning some new techniques about driving, some things that I used to use in the past. I used to do a lot of miles, about 30-odd thousand miles or so, in a diesel Xantia, Citroen Xantia, turbo diesel Xantia, and I used to do quite a lot of kind of hypermiling type things in that car, letting it, you kind of build up speed and then letting it coast and all that down country roads, so you're not getting in the way of other people doing it, but you can make a big difference in your economy. It's a bit different when you're driving an EV. You do want to coast, you want to make the most of coasting. You do get regenerative braking, of course, which gives you some energy back, but that efficiency level is not very good. So new techniques of driving that you learn to get the best out of the car. We are still, it's April, would you believe it? It is a bit warmer than it's been the last couple of days, 8 degrees, yet it is still pretty cold. And there we are, 9,999 miles. Just about to tip over to 10,000 miles of EV driving, pure EV driving. So if I'd been thinking about this, I would have had a little fanfare prepared, maybe a little band in the back seat for this moment. I don't have any of that. I jumped in the car because I knew it was coming up to 10,000 miles and thought I'll do a wee run out into the country and film this moment for posterity. Never did a mile seem so long. 10,000 miles. I'm into 5 digits on my mileometer now. Superb. Now, 10,000 miles, those 10,000 miles have so far cost me nothing in fuel charges. Now, my last video, I actually, I assumed I was going to be charged for a charge I made at a public charging point that should be charged, but in actual fact, it never happened. The charge never actually came through. So I am still at a point where I have not yet been charged for any of these miles. 10,000 miles. There we go. I'm going to take a wee picture on my camera, so I'm just going to stop here a sec. Before that disappears, you've got to do your Facebook update, you see. If you're connected in the world today, these things are very important. There we are. I will line myself up. And more than that, I will post it onto Facebook right this moment, because that's how sad I am. So there we are, 10,000 miles of EV driving, and as I was saying so far those 10,000 miles, just because of the way the infrastructure is being developed and the way I'm doing my charging, because the location where we live, we can't have our own charger. One of the chargers that would otherwise be paid for, or at least you get. In fact, no, it would be Renault would pay for it with British Gas and subsidies and all the rest. So you have a charger at home. We don't have one of those, unfortunately. It would be much more convenient to have one, but because we don't have off-street car parking for the car, we just have to park on the street outside the house. We can't get one. You can't have cables lying across the pavement for safety reasons, obviously. It means that I have only been using public charging. We have a public charger which is very close to the house, so that's the one I tend to use most of the time. Because of using mostly public charging and that charging being subsidised at the moment, these 10,000 miles have not cost me anything in fuel costs. They have cost me something when you work out the bigger picture, in that there's a kind of a premium in buying an EV car. I'm having to pay a battery rental, so there are extra costs involved in that. However, the actual upfront costs for the fuel, if you like, the power, have been none. Of course, if I was charging at home, most of that charging would be done at home, then you would have a cost. So most EV drivers are not in the same boat that I am, in that they are charging overnight, each night or every other night, or however often they need to, and so are paying for the power that way. Though it's only £2, £3, depends on what kind of rate you're on for your electricity provider, to get that power. So it's not a big cost. So that's anyway, that's been a bonus for me, and generally it works fine. The charger that's near us, maybe every 3 months or so, has a wee little hiccup. Something goes a bit wrong with it. However, it's been okay recently. It went down a few days ago, but I think somebody just came along and turned it off and restarted it, and then it's back on again. So it's generally been fine. I have had an issue the last few weeks with a van. It's a Mercedes van. I think it's a Mercedes, isn't it? Yeah, Mercedes van that has been charging at the charger, and it is an EV van, so it's cool to see that. However, for 2 weeks in a row, the van was plugged in and then just left for, well, the first week it was for 4 days. So that completely took over the charger, and it wasn't that the person was, you know, using it, driving it back. It was just sat there for 4 days. Of course, it had charged the first night, and then it sat there with the cable in, and you were unable to use the charger. The other side of the charger being occupied by a Co-Wheels car, one of the cars that you can rent kind of by the hour. We have quite a few of those around Aberdeen. I saw one of the guys from the council and alerted him to this, and he was going to send a note to the company. So I mean, I hope it doesn't put off the folks that are using it, because it's really good to see the electric vans being used, because it's ideal for around cities. But it's just education for the drivers, in that, you know, plug it in, charge it up, but when it's charged up, then unplug it. Just, you know, move it 2 spaces away so that other people can then use the charger. So otherwise, charging has been fine. On the car itself, after 10,000 miles, well, hopefully you can hear as we're driving along. No big creaks or groans or anything. It is still very smooth and quiet to drive. The dashboard, as you've seen in one of the previous videos, has been changed, and thankfully there have been no creaks or groans as a result of that. Though I have it down here in a pocket, because one of these, when it goes next into the garage, there is an extra nut that appeared, which I think is from underneath somewhere, and, well, I guess at some point that needs to find its home back again, and see where that belongs. But however, it doesn't seem to have made any big impact, thankfully, on the actual car, and that it is still quiet and no creaks or groans or anything like that. Performance is fine. It's just as it was. I've not noticed any changes in the battery life. Of course, we've been going through the winter, and during the winter you get less charge in the battery, less usable charge in the battery, and you're using more power because you're using the heat, more heat and all of the rest. So the range does tend to go down. So we're still, we're coming out of that now. So the range is starting to climb back up, and you will, when I'm charging now, quite often I do see 80 plus miles on the anticipated range on the battery, whereas it was down to this kind of 60s, mid 60s during the middle of the winter, when you're using lots of energy for the heater. And I think I've said in previous videos, most of the time, because I'm driving around the city and all of that, I don't skimp on the heating in the winter. I have it generally not on the eco mode, so that the heater's working at full rate, so that you don't completely freeze. Now, if I was doing a longer journey, I might just put on an extra layer and get a bit more range instead. However, for day-to-day driving, I can't be bothered with that. I just let it do its thing. I have noticed, and I think, I can't remember if I've put anything about this in one of my earlier videos, but I've subsequently had a few conversations online with folks about it, and I think in the comments on YouTube, that the regeneration, how the regeneration works, does seem to have changed. And This is after it went in for its service at the end of the year in December, and I don't really like how it has changed as a leaf just go by, because what it seems to me they've done in their wisdom, Renault, is that they've responded to some people's concerns that the lift-off regeneration was too high. So when you take your foot off the throttle, as I've just done now, it would try and regenerate too much, and so there's too much slowing down, which feels a bit unnatural because it is more than you would get from a combustion engined car in general. So it seems like they have toned that down, and so that you have to use the brake pedal more in order to get a higher rate of regeneration. So the reason I don't like that change, and I think I need to kind of see it through into the summer, into the warmer weather, just in case my mind isn't playing tricks on me, that it's not a kind of cold weather thing. I don't think it is, but we'll kind of wait and see over the next few months. What I don't like about it is that it makes it less straightforward to one-foot drive. In other words, just to drive on the throttle, where you of course you're using the throttle for putting energy into the car. You lift off the throttle and you just feather the throttle, and you can see this on the gauge in front of you, to get it just nailed at the kind of 0 point where it's not regenerating, but you're not putting energy into the system either. Energy into the system, I mean energy into the motor. You're not drawing on the battery. So you're coasting, and then when you want to slow down a bit more, you just gently lift off the throttle, and it will slow down. And when you get to know the car, you can use that in traffic. You can use it on country roads, certainly on roads that you know well, to completely modulate your speed without ever touching the brake pedal, apart from when you need to come to a halt. Then you do need to touch the brake pedal. Now I find that very satisfying and a very efficient way of driving, but it is not as easy now. I feel I'm touching the brake pedal a lot more, and it feels just almost exactly the same as I used to have an automatic car. It feels just like driving that now. So it feels like Renault have tried to go to something that is more familiar for people moving from a regular automatic car, to this. Now, I can understand why they've done that. It kind of makes sense for newbies coming in, but it kind of it has taken away one of the real benefits and joys of EV driving. That, okay, there's a bit of a learning curve to it, to understanding it, but once you've got it, it really makes driving simpler and nicer and easier. So I miss that. As I say, in part it may be a weather thing, a temperature thing, and when the batteries are really cold, they can't take as much charge, but I'm not wholly convinced. But we'll see. So that's something. I mean, the car itself is behaving absolutely fine. It's not really causing any big issues. It's just my driving behaviour that I'd got used to and actually really appreciated. I feel like I'm having to change it again to something that feels a bit retrograde, a bit of a backward step, and that it doesn't feel right somehow. So that's a bit of a shame. That anyway, we'll see how that develops. And on the yes, on again on the braking. Now, I haven't actually noticed this for a little while, but I have noticed a couple of times, and this is again after the car had been serviced, and they'd obviously done some updates to the car, that when I was coming down a long, steady hill, there's one coming all the way down into Aberdeen, and I would lift off the throttle just to let it use the energy that you had from being up high and recoup some of that energy on the way back down, and it actually, you could feel the rate of regeneration change. Now, so that was a kind of static, I wasn't doing anything, I wasn't changing position on the throttle or anything like that, and that's when you would expect a change, or if you're putting your foot gently on the brake pedal, where again you can modulate the amount of regeneration. It wasn't that, it was just doing it on its own, and it actually, no, it's only happened twice, but it actually started to let go of the regeneration. It's like it had a higher level and then it started to ramp it down. Of course that means it's slowing the car down less, so it feels like the car is speeding up, because you're used to this certain level of deceleration, and then that level reduces. It almost feels like you're accelerating. It isn't, of course, but it's just in your mind. So that's a little bit disconcerting. As I say, it's only done it a couple of times, and it never did it before it went in for this service. So I just feel like they've made a few changes to the way the regeneration works, and I'm not convinced by those. You'll get, though, if I'm complaining about little things like the subtleties in regeneration, that there isn't really an awful lot to complain about. The car really has been working absolutely fine. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else to flag up on this 10,000 miles kind of summary. One of the things that the car's been used quite a lot more. We're using it and for all sorts of family things and all that sort of stuff. One of my other videos, I lamented the fact that you just had this bare kind of metal, painted but bare metal crossbeam underneath where the boot opens, and that is inevitably going to get scratched. Well, sure enough, I do have scratches on it now. None of my own making, but hey ho, that's family living for you. So I must do something about that. I know folks had put a lot of different suggestions down, so I must get some kind of cover to put on that before it gets any worse. The other thing, I guess, to flag up, which is great if you're thinking about buying a Renault ZOE, but you are the options for purchasing one now, and some of the deals you can get are really, really good, and better than when I bought the car, alas, but that's the way it goes. As I'm planning on keeping this for quite a while, so things will kind of work themselves out in the wash. But if you're thinking about getting one now, there are some fantastic deals on kind of ex-demonstrator, low mileage cars out there. So don't hold back. Look out for one. You get a cracking deal, and really could save yourself a huge amount of money in the process, even with it being an EV and that kind of having to put in some money for the technology. Some of the deals I've seen people getting recently have been startling brilliant. The other thing, which I know I have mentioned in another video, is that there is a new version of the ZOE coming out, and there does seem to be a bit more clarity on this new version with a new motor that's coming. Same power, but a more efficient motor. So you will get a bit more range. I think they're thinking about 7 or 8% more range or something along those lines. And So that might be worthwhile for folks that are wondering about that. The downside is it doesn't do the 43 kilowatt charging. So in making changes to the way the motor and inverter work and the packaging for them, they haven't been able to include the 43 kilowatt charging, which is that's a shame. For long journeys, that is really good. It really helps. So I think it might mean that the car is more restricted to shorter journeys. As far as I'm aware, they're actually allowing you to buy one or t'other. You can make a choice whether you'd like slightly smaller range but have the rapid charging element, which I think is probably the better balance for my own use. Other people's mileage will vary, or you go for the other motor. I don't think there's any cost implication for either one. It's just a choice. Or was there? Oh, I can't remember. There might have been a cost implication. Maybe it was a bit cheaper. I can't remember. I've seen something about it just recently. I'd have to go and double check that. The other thing that there's been a lot of talk about is kind of looking ahead 2016, 2017, both for the Leaf and for the Zoe. Of course, Nissan and Renault being in partnership with each other. That there will be a new version of each with a vastly expanded battery pack. The batteries are getting cheaper all the time. The amount of volume required for a given kilowatt hour is reducing. So they're looking at batteries that could see the Renault with a range of about 186 miles or so. Now that would be cool. That certainly that would make driving down to Glasgow a one charge drive, which would be fab. At the moment I can do it with one stop along the way. It's kind of more comfortable to do it with two shorter stops along the way. Adds about an hour to the journey, 50 minutes an hour to the journey. But that'd be sweet. And on that subject, of course, there was always been talk right from the beginning of this car, and I remember when I was chatting with the dealers about it, that there had been talk there about in the future when their batteries change, that there might be the possibility of, for those who are leasing their batteries, of switching the batteries out to a battery with a bigger capacity. So we will see. That would be nice though, wouldn't it? That would full on give you a new lease of life. It'll almost like getting a whole new car. I suspect there would be another, if something like that was going to happen, you'd have to take out another 3 years of rental on the battery agreement or whatever, much like you do for a mobile phone, that kind of plan. However, I would be absolutely fine with that, since I'm going to be paying anyway for the battery rental. Yes, not going to hold my breath, but it would be interesting. I was going to treat the Zoe to a wash and actually take you through the car wash. I used to be so diligent and wash my cars by hand, but yeah, now just shove them through the car wash, and there is no problem putting an EV through the car wash. Though the number of folks I've had asking that question, can you still wash it? Is it okay to put water over it? So, however, it's raining outside, so there really wouldn't be much point putting the car through the car wash just to then drive home and have it covered in muck again. So I am going to do that another day. A shame, never mind. However, I do need to charge up, so I'm going to head back home and hope that the charging point, one of the sides, is free, so I can charge up. looks like about 15% or so left on the charge. 12 miles range, it says anyway. I am averaging, my average is not too bad at the moment, 3.8 miles per kilowatt hour, which is surely a sign the temperature is going up. Over 4 is good in my books. Over 5 is fantastic. Around in the winter, it's kind of high 2s usually, which would be about right, just considering the range and all that sort of stuff. It does make a big difference in the winter. The heat, using the heater, and just intrinsically, you just don't seem to have as much power available in the battery. Not quite sure how that all works. I did read something about that before. You know, it's a 20 whatever it is, well, 22 kilowatt hours or whatever you've got available to you, battery pack. Now, surely it doesn't go down, or does it, during the winter? I haven't quite worked that one out. Or is it just the efficiency goes down? Hard one to work out. It's a long time since I did physics at physics A level, so I need some guidance from some professionals on that one. So here I am doing the full just lift off and coast to the lights. So you can still do it. I haven't touched the brakes yet. Not yet, not yet, not yet, not yet, not yet, not yet. I'm at 5 miles an hour, and then I just need to touch the brakes to come to a halt. Just as the lights then change, of course. That's the way it goes. So you can still do that, just not quite as easy as it was. Back down our road, which is absolutely appalling. It is so badly in need of resurfacing, and speed bumps down it as well. So you've got speed bumps and terrible resurfacing terrible surfacing and resurfacing is required. However, it's a good workout on the old system, thumping your way down it. Oh, the moment of truth. And there is space available, and the lights are green, even better. Good. Yeah, nothing much doing here. Kind of 91 out of 100. As I say, it's fairly good, but it's not anything special I've been doing recently in my motoring, but not too bad. And right, I need to go and plug in. Excuse me a moment. Yep, we're charging up, so 15, it was on 15%, which is about what I thought it was. So it's just started charging now at my regular stop, just there. So so that's all just much of a muchness. I'm just going to unplug here. Hope I've got a bit of battery juice in the old GoPro. The car is a disastrous mess. I mean, Look at this disgusting mess all over the place. But what do you do? Well, I'll show you here what I was talking about. Ugh. Yeah, look at these scratches. I mean, nothing's gone through, it's just in the paintwork, but you just knew that that was going to happen. And a few more over here, so I need to do something with this to protect this a wee bit better. My stash of Diet Coke, always keep them with you. And so that's us. I don't think there's really much else to say for this this particular edition. Now that I'm back, what are we up to now? Let's have a look and see. Skip through here. 10,022 miles left on the clock. All. Yeah, I mean, this whole thing, as I've been saying throughout this series of videos, it's all a bit of an experiment, and it's nice to be able to do that experiment without it being too risky because of the situation we're in and the general miles that we do and all of that, most of the mileage that I do. But it's been very straightforward, and I suspect for most people it would be entirely possible just to transition over to an EV. It takes a bit of attitudinal adjustment as to just how you think about your driving and all of that, but it's really only for longer journeys that you need to do that. For most of the time, not at all. And the technology is clearly getting utterly mainstream, in that here's a small kind of super mini size car. It's actually fine for us, for putting family in as well. Can't take the whole family, we've got 4 kids, but for all of the taxiing and all that sort of stuff that you end up doing all the time, it's perfect. And generally you just wouldn't really think twice about it, other than it is quieter, smoother to drive, and the running costs are minimal, very small indeed. Perfect. Can't really be faulted for that. So that's all really good. Anyway, I think that's enough for me, and for video number 16, I think this is a shorter one this time, but one that saw that milestone pass of moving to 5 figures on the mileage. Woo!